RFK Jr. says people with autism will never hold a job, never pay taxes, and never go on a date. That's the latest coming out of his mouth, and that's not all. As many of you may know, the cause of autism is unknown. There's no cure for autism. There were so many myths and unfounded, with no scientific proof whatsoever, that vaccines had caused autism. That's untrue. We know that. However, experts across the board agree that environmental factors could play a role in why autism exists. Now, the CDC just published a report where they're estimating the prevalence of autism to be in the United States 1 in 31 children who are diagnosed with autism. That's 3% of the kids in the United States. Now, there's been a debate for decades, not only with autism, but just with disease in general, whether it's physical or psychological diagnoses. There have always been and continue to be debates on whether or not these diagnoses are heavily rooted in genetics or heavily rooted in environmental factors or both. But in regards to autism, many studies have suggested that the risk of autism is heavily rooted in genetics by as much as 80%. Now, in 2000, the prevalence of autism was 1 in 150. So 1 in 150 children were diagnosed with autism. However, over the last 20 years, there has been a huge uptake in autism awareness. And the more awareness there is for any diagnosis, the more diagnoses there are going to be, because people are more aware of the symptoms, what to look for, and whether or not to take their child to a doctor to get diagnosed. So as a result, over the last 20 years, the prevalence of autism could have increased because of autism awareness. There's more awareness. RFK acknowledged this, but called this reasoning indefensible. He further went on to say, and I'm going to quote exactly what he said, because it's shocking. He went on to say, quote, "Autism destroys families, and more importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which is our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go on a date. And many of them will never use a toilet unassisted." The ignorance that exists is unbelievable. Talk about spreading misinformation, disinformation, increasing stigma. And this is who is running the Department of Health and Human Services. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on... I'd be interested to know also what your thoughts are on the causes of autism, especially for those individuals who have children who have been diagnosed with autism, and what your doctors say, because as we know, doctors across the country all have different opinions, and they're the ones who are treating our kids, right? So, sometimes these studies, they're biased. As hard as scientists may try, you really have to take all of these studies for any topic like a grain of salt. But I'll keep you updated. Please like, follow, and share so that I can continue to provide you with content. And I appreciate you being here.